Hey y'all. As you know, these emails continue to tumble out of the Epstein files, and we continuously keep seeing the royal family get implicated in them. As if Sarah Ferguson's emails could not have gotten bad enough, now we see that she and Beatrice were trying to help reporters identify Epstein, or at least how they would describe Epstein, in ways that softened his image. I kid you not. These people were trying to make Epstein, a known sex trafficker, more palatable. I don't have words, but then again, I do, because y'all know me by now. So let's get started. Once again, thank you so much for clicking on my video, and if you're returning, welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to get into an article from Feminagra that details Sarah Ferguson's emails, along with Princess Beatrice, suggesting that they were trying to make Epstein more palatable in the media. But before we get into that, if you haven't already, please don't forget to go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and feel free to share so that more people can find us. The newly released emails do not rely on rumor or recollection. These are written exchanges from 2011, several years after Jeffrey Epstein's conviction and release from a Florida jail. In the messages, Sarah Ferguson describes her phone calls with journalists and states that she and her daughter, Princess Beatrice, discussed how the media should characterize Epstein. The wording is striking. Ferguson refers to Epstein as someone who had done his penance and indicates an intention to steer journalists away from labeling him a pedophile. This is a mother. The correspondence also shows Beatrice was present during at least one of these calls and involved in conversations about follow-up messaging. This does not read as teenage ignorance or secondhand exposure. At the time, Princess Beatrice was in her early 20s and old enough to understand the seriousness of charges that the media had already reported widely. Separate emails attributed to Epstein add another layer. In one exchange years later, he claimed Beatrice likes him and expresses little concern about her presence at social events. While his words reflect his own perspective rather than verified sentiment, their existence underscores how comfortable he appeared referencing royal familiarity even after his conviction. The real issue here is not legal guilt, it is judgment. Saying he served his time might make sense for many crimes, but it hits differently now when the crime involved underage girls. The email shows this was not a random slip of the tongue. Sarah Ferguson wrote that she and Princess Beatrice discussed how journalists should describe Jeffrey Epstein and agreed it was important to emphasize that he had done his penance and was moving on with his life. That detail changes the picture. It shows awareness, not confusion. Epstein's 2008 conviction was already public knowledge by 2011. They focused on how they wanted people to talk about him, framing him as someone who had paid looks like reputation management. It also clashes with later public statements that tried to distance the family from him, as if the seriousness only became clear much later. Princess Beatrice's name resurfaces because the emails show she was not just nearby, but involved in the discussion and present during calls with journalists. That casts doubt on People magazine exclusive claiming both Beatrice and Eugenie felt duped by later Epstein revelations. At the very least, the emails show Beatrice had prior awareness and actively participated in shaping how Jeffrey Epstein was described publicly rather than later claiming total surprise. For years, the media and royal circles largely shielded Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie from criticism over their parents, Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, and their continued association with Jeffrey Epstein. However, that should end. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie do not receive sovereign grant funding for their charities and instead rely on private salaries, family wealth, and fundraising events. Even so, the latest document releases have led many to ask whether donations linked to Epstein or people in his wider network ever intersected with royal adjacent causes. The concern is not only direct ties, but indirect ones through business partners and social circles. One name that has resurfaced in this wider conversation is Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, the chairman and CEO of DP World. Unsealed U.S. Department of Justice records previously referenced an email from Jeffrey Epstein that mentioned a torture video, with later court acknowledgments identifying bin Sulayem as the sender of that material. Separately, DP World is also a founding partner and major donor to Prince William's Earthshot Prize, pledging £1 million to the environmental initiative. That overlap illustrates how easily influential business figures can appear in both philanthropic and controversial document trails at the same time, turning otherwise routine partnerships into uncomfortable optics. In the end, the spotlight falls back on Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, not because anyone has charged them with crimes, but because the emails make claims of total ignorance harder to believe. The written records show conversations, witnesses, and clear moments of awareness, leaving a simple question. How much did they actually understand at the time? And why was the public later encouraged to think they knew almost nothing? That's a wonderful question, and one that I consistently ask. Again, not trying to lay claim or make an allegation, but it is very concerning to me, and it always has been, especially within the last 2 years, that Princess Eugenie's life work is centered around stopping exploitation of people, stopping trafficking, stopping abuse. Part of her, not even part of, her entire work with the Anti-Slavery Coalition is stopping human trafficking, which includes sex trafficking, and it includes sex trafficking of underage girls. A question I have consistently asked, even when I've been criticized for asking this question, is how close was Prince Andrew to Princess Eugenie's causes? And the reason I bring that up is because what exactly was her motive or impetus for working in that space? I've always been very concerned about that. I've always been very curious. Again, that's an amazing space to work in, and those victims deserve justice, and they deserve a second chance, if not a third or et cetera, chance at life. They deserve the help that she's providing for them, and I think that's wonderful that she's doing that. But I have always asked, how is it that you can be an advocate for victims' rights, especially trafficking victims' rights, when your own father, who you publicly continue to stand by, was part of one of the largest sex trafficking rings in the world? And in the work that Eugenie does, which she highlights on her Spotlight or Floodlight podcast with the other founder of the Anti-Slavery Coalition and her friend, they talk about the crime rings that involve the trafficking. They talk about the legal matters associated with trafficking and ending trafficking and rescuing victims and getting to the source. How is it that you could be working in the sex trafficking space but never have come across Jeffrey Epstein, one of the most well-known traffickers in the world, and has been for quite some time, not even privately? He was convicted in 2008. There was a very likely chance, and I'm using likely very loosely, there's a very likely chance she's come across Epstein. And how is it, if you come across this person in your work, that you don't know they know your father? And if you know they know your father, how is it that you didn't make the connection to what your father was likely involved in? And if that's the case, how is it that you can still stand by your father? Also, what I'm wondering, is it the chicken or the egg? If this is the work which Princess Eugenie has presented to us through the Anti-Slavery Coalition, the organization she and her partner started, along with their Floodlight podcast, that is supposed to end human trafficking, human exploitation, slavery, all forms of human exploitation, but especially sex trafficking. They've talked about it on their Floodlight podcast. How is it that you can work in that space and do such great work? And that organization has grown to be very big. It is international now, and it's doing a wonderful job. How is it that you can work in that space and at no point have your morals regarding your work and your relationship with your father come into question? And I'm sure they have, but how is it that it feels to me, by not openly denouncing your dad, you are actively choosing an abuser over the victims that you claim to care about? And how is it that at no point in the work that Princess Eugenie has done has she not come across Epstein? And perhaps she has, but then how is it that she wasn't able to make the connection between Epstein and her father, who was not just present and a part of his behaviors and his sex trafficking, but was not only a proponent of it, but a recruiter, as we saw through the emails? And now the walls are closing in, being that her mother was also very much present and aware of what Epstein was up to. And now it's clear that her sister was at the very least present at least one of Epstein's parties and was aware of what Epstein was and who he was. I see every other York family member being fully immersed in the Epstein world. And then I see the one that is not, so far, having a anti-sex trafficking or anti-trafficking organization. My concern isn't only with where do her loyalties lie, but also Having such close contact with these traffickers and these organizations, and having such intel that you likely have when you're doing that type of work, having that kind of proximity to victims and the potential for other people to be victimized, how is it that you can be that close to the victims? And how much distance was between you and your work and your dad and his friends? Because, again, not making an allegation, I'm just saying it's hard for me to not ask these questions, because to me, it's almost like Andrew might have had access to people who had either been victimized or were already in some sort of compromised situation. It seems like there is a lot of predatory behavior happening around a person who works against those same types of predators. I find that to be one hell of a coincidence, and I'm still concerned, as I asked yesterday, where do these things overlap? And it would be in everyone's best interest to proactively speak out, operate in transparency, instead of allowing these things to keep tumbling out. I'm really concerned about the victims in the care of the Anti-Slavery Coalition, and that is a fair concern. One thing that brings me relief is that Princess Eugenie herself has not been named in any of these things outside of the extremely vulgar, disgusting comment her disgusting mother made about her. But she could very much be receiving all this information in real time like the rest of us. And I say that with a smidgen of hope, but not a whole lot of confidence in that. How much access did Andrew have to these exploited people who were in the care and the trust of someone who was standing by a known abuser, but who were trusting the organization to help them? Not saying that the organization hasn't helped people, but it's really hard to trust an organization centered around ending sex trafficking and human exploitation when one of the founders and the face of the org is standing by a known abuser. And then it comes out that her mother also was not only standing by a known abuser, but was fawning over this man, asking him to marry her. And then her sister was also part of it. I wish her all the best, because up until this point, and I'm saying that today, February 11th, 2026 at 3:49 p.m. CST, because tomorrow we might get more emails where I retract that. So I want to be very clear. Up until this point, Princess Eugenie has not been implicated in anything. She has not been named in anything outside of the vulgar statement her mom made. At this point, she bears no guilt of any kind outside of her associations and outside of her silence. And the only reason for me that I'm focusing on her in this situation is because of the work that she has chosen to do. If she were a seamstress, if she were a model, if she were an actress, none of this would really matter to this extent when it comes to her. All of it is very important. But the reason I'm taking a keen interest in her in this situation, when the conversations and the emails are about her father, mother, and sister, is because she is the only one of these people who works with an anti-trafficking organization that she started. And I'm just finding it very hard to continue to believe that the reason she went into this line of work is because she felt compelled out of nowhere. And I'm finding it even harder to believe that maybe this work is being done in good faith when she's standing by an abuser in the same field of work that she's working to advocate against. How is it that you can stand with your father, or at the very least not denounce him publicly, and then still sit at the head of the Anti-Slavery Coalition and expect us to not wonder if there's overlap somewhere, if this man is not shooting fish in a barrel from your organization? God, I would hope not. How can the victims trust that they're not being led to an ill fate, another one, knowing how close in proximity you are because of your family? My concern starts with the victims. And then I can say, oh, I hate this for Eugenie because she does work in this space, because I would feel more inclined to feel that way if she were to come out and denounce what her family has done and disassociate herself from either the organization or her family. If she were to make her loyalties known, because you have innocent, helpless, vulnerable victims and survivors who are relying on you and your moral compass to operate in good faith. These are people who have already been compromised in a multitude of ways, to which I don't even have to describe. No one knows better than Princess Eugenie. But it is really hard to see her family continue to be implicated, falling like dominoes, and she's the lone person standing and she's standing with a group of survivors of the same type of heinous crimes that her family is being implicated in harming. It's really hard to not see the connections and not ask, where does her advocacy end and their predatory behavior and the pool of people they're plucking from begin? Again, want to make it clear, not Eugenie's fault what her family does. But until she makes it clear where she stands, it's fair to wonder, and it's also very understandable to worry for the victims. Thank you so much for watching the SharionSade YouTube channel. I appreciate you watching my content. If you haven't already, please don't forget to go ahead and like this video by hitting the thumbs up. Please don't forget to subscribe by hitting the subscribe button. And don't forget to comment along the way. If you feel so inclined, please don't forget to share so that more people can find us. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Now let's get back to the video. Like I said before, this is just a continuation. We're going to continue to get information out. But I will say this. I'm continuously disappointed in the Yorks. For now, I am excluding Eugenie in that statement. Again, this is February 11th, 2026. I'm excluding Eugenie in that statement. I'm not disappointed in her. I'm concerned about where she stands, and I'm reserving any kind of reaction or judgment until there's clarity there. But for all the rest of them, they're disgusting. From Andrew to Sarah to Beatrice, all of them are disgusting. I hope Princess Eugenie makes her stance known. Now, with that said, everything in these files that's coming out, all of it, it's a lot. So I just want to encourage everyone to take your time. I've come across things that I wish I had not, and that was just scrolling. So I actually mute several words like Epstein, I mute Prince Andrew, I mute Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, Sarah Ferguson. I mute these words on social media all the time. And then when I'm ready to collect data and get caught up, I give myself about an hour to an hour and a half every couple of days to do so before I'll talk about it. And something that I appreciate Feminagra for is they manage to give you the information without inundating you, without really, really, really hard stuff to process. And so much of what's in those files is very difficult to process, from how they were treating the children, to photos, to videos, to emails, to the animals. Like there was a lot. Architecture choices that have an understanding of the meaning and the purpose of those architectural choices, excuse me. So I say that to say this: protect your mental health. A lot is coming at us at once. Stay informed, but please be mindful of self first and be considerate of self first. And then also, I hope justice is served. I feel like that would do a number for all of our mental health if we saw justice served, if we weren't just being told how horrible these world leaders were, but we were actually seeing them pay the price for how horrible these world leaders were. And we weren't seeing people, even women, coming out to defend them. We weren't seeing people ask for immunity and clemency. And if we were able to see consequences, it might make digesting this information a little bit better, but that'll be the day. I will say my heart is absolutely with the victims and survivors of all of this. I can't imagine. And that is, I'm saying that as someone who's very grateful I can't imagine, but I am heartbroken that there are people who not only can't imagine, but have and experience this. And every time these conversations come up, they're experiencing this. I saw someone on social media say how triggered they're feeling with all this information coming out because they had other experiences, but they were similar. And I just have to say, please protect yourself. Please be very intentional about how you protect your psyche, and unplug when needed, mute words when needed. You can always get caught up. You can always get caught up, but it is very hard to forget something that you've seen. You cannot unsee certain things. So please take care of yourself. Anyway, I'm hoping to start covering more lighter topics again. I definitely want to talk about what's in the news right now and what's current right now, but I also want to continue talking about the fun and the happy stuff. So if you guys have recommendations for things that you want me to talk about, email me at hellosharion@gmail.com. Again, royal related, preferably Sussex related. But if you have something that I haven't covered yet that you want me to talk about, please send me an email at hellosharion@gmail.com, and I will absolutely work it into the agenda. For those of you on Patreon, y'all are spoiled. I talk about whatever you tell me to. So because it's a paid platform, whatever they ask, I talk about it. That's how I determine my content over there. It's 100% user requested. And then for the member side, we get to talk about things that maybe I don't want public conversation intertwined in. So we talk about fun stuff, but we also talk about some more serious matters. Y'all have a video coming on Friday, actually, and so does Patreon. But sometimes I don't even want to risk derangers being part of the conversation and ruin the fun, or I don't want to risk other people who I don't want part of the conversation to be part of it. I want it to be more of a safe space. So if you're looking for a more private space to continue these conversations within what I would call Sussex community, you're welcome to join the Patreon or the YouTube memberships, and I hope you are enjoying the content. Anyway, that is all I have for y'all. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and feel free to share, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.